So I wanted to talk a little bit about structured writing and structured reading. In the humanities, the traditional humanities tools, regardless of discipline, are you look at archival documents, and whether it's English texts or ancient Sanskrit or history or archaeological artifacts or whatever it is, and you take notes. And this has traditionally been a manual thing, and the ideal way to take notes is on index cards, and then you sort them to identify what patterns emerge from the facts you've collected. And from those patterns that emerge, the big bundles of index cards, you then set or develop an argument. So this is a piece of standard writing in the humanities. It's a normal paragraph. The first sentence is the theme sentence. It's talking about garrisons in early modern fortifications, and then there's three examples. There's one from Raimondo Montecuccoli, there's one from Roger Williams, and there's one from an Italian text by Francesco Del Marchi. So it's statement and three facts. It could be about the character of Hamlet with three quotations. It could be about death in the poetry of Emily Dickinson. It could be about finds of Viking spearheads in settlements in Dublin and Jorvik. It's a standard format for supporting an argument based on facts. And what you need to know for reading in the humanities is that the first sentence, the argument, is what's important. And if the argument is properly constructed, there will be more facts. You could swap some of these out and replace them with other facts that would support the same argument. So here's an exercise I did years ago where I got students to separate in two columns. The factual content, which is on the left here, about early Celtic kingship as it turned out, and the elements that represented the view or the argument that the author was building on top of those. It's to try and separate the structure and the argument from the big bucket of facts that the author has used. This is a technique called mind mapping. This is actually a mind map for a lecture. In a mind map, the big points are the ones closest to the center. And in this case, it goes clockwise. So there's 7 major points. Well, 6 really, because that's pointing to next week's lecture. And it's an argument about the development of warfare from 3000 BC to 1450, and it identifies major periods, and then the evidence and the facts which give distinctive flavor to those periods are located on the lower branches. And the thing about it is that if this argument is properly constructed, then there should be a lot of other facts that one could choose to support this interpretive structure. And if I've been very unbalanced in my selection of facts or incorrect in my discernment of the patterns, then this structure won't stand up. But when you're reading in the humanities, this is what you need to read, and this is what you need to see, these major points, and therefore what you then need to be able to write, in terms of structured writing, is you need to be able to lay out this argument. And this is important to understand this difference between argument, analysis on the one level, the big headings, and then the facts that you line up to support them. So this is a student mind map of a book chapter on warfare. And it's recognizable as the book chapter, and clearly the main points of the argument are there. But it's quite a thin summary in that there's no engagement with the evidence that's lined up to support them. So it's not bad, but in terms of breaking down a full chapter, it doesn't give a very complete picture of what evidence the author has used to support the argument. This is a similar topic. It's almost identical topic. It's a different writer. And here it's a chapter which clearly has 6 major sections in it. And each of these major sections of the argument have a couple of sort of subheadings. Each of these subheadings, as it turns out in the article, correspond to a paragraph, and the lowest level are the bits of evidence that he's lined up to support the argument in this paragraph. And this group of paragraphs makes it an argument about the military revolution, and then it talks about Italy, and it talks about tactics outside of Italy and in different periods, and the impact on strategy and the growth of the state and on society. So it makes a fairly clear argument. And there's a big debate about this in military history, the relationship between military changes and the change of the state. And this is a very good example. It clearly shows the structure of the argument. You can very clearly see what the shape of the thing is. it allows you to see the entire picture on one page. And this is becoming more and more important, not just as a tool for reading and a tool for revision, but also as we become more visual in our presentation of knowledge. Being able to see how you can convert great big lumps of traditional humanities text into visual representations that can help people to navigate quickly and make sense visually is important. So this is me doing it in practice on a chapter, I think it's from Alvin Jackson's book on history of Ireland, where I've got the iPad with the PDF of the chapter open on the iPad. And as you can see, I've gone through here and I've picked out what I think is the important heading on the first paragraph, which I've underlined in red. And then I've got the points that he's made to support that, which I've underlined in yellow using the annotation tools, and I've converted this into the first part of a mind map. And then this is the second paragraph, and it talks about the different phases. And here we go. Here's the phases, number of phases, murder of people, particular incidences that he picks up here, which, because of trying to get both these things on the same screen, some of these particular names and events that he's identified, Kevin Barry, the burning of Balbriggan, Bloody Sunday, are on the next page. So it's not always possible to show the process exactly, precisely right. But that's how the first 4 or 5 paragraphs of this are, I've picked them out. And for me, this is how I read. If I'm reading something for class, I use color, I use underlining on a digital form, and if I then want to reprocess this in some form, I break it out into a mind map, and if I want to combine several readings, then I combine the mind maps together. So there's another slide from it, and we seem to have quite a few. But this is a composite. This is compositing several mind maps together. These are quite old. They're from undergraduate teaching a couple of years ago. But one is from a mind map for a lecture on the enlightened despots, where I talked about the domestic reforms of Maria Theresa, Catherine the Great, and Frederick the Great. And another one is from military operations in the Age of Enlightenment, where I talked about the different commanders, including Frederick the Great and his art of war and how it related to his foreign policy. So by taking the Frederick the Great bit from the military operations one and the Frederick's domestic policy from the enlightened absolutism, and take that one and paste it into this mind map, and take the military one and paste it into the other side, I then have a mind map that gives me the reign of Frederick the Great in one mind map. So it allows me to refactor things and reuse ideas and restructure them very quickly. And then with most mind mapping tools, I prefer FreeMind and XMind are my two favorite free mind mapping tools. You can then select the whole mind map and paste it into most word processors, and you get a structured, indented outline to write from. So you can take each of these headings, the heading on religion, and you can turn each of these into a sentence about his policy on religious toleration, and so on all the way down, and write from your structure. So it imposes organization on your structure, on your essay structure, and it makes your argument clear. And this is important because if you look at this, to us, looking at this with eyeball mark 1, there are very clearly headings in this. The top heading, the military revolution, is a big heading, and then there's 3 subheadings. And our eye automatically processes this as headings, even though they're in slightly different fonts from each other. There isn't consistency across the headings. To any word processor, this is meaningless, because all we've done is slap some funny font attributes on the fonts. We've made them bold, we've made them italic, we've made them bigger, we've picked a different font, but we haven't been consistent in how we identify them. This is the same piece of text in OpenOffice. OpenOffice, LibreOffice, Microsoft Word, Keynote, Pages, do the same sort of thing, in that they allow you, instead of just picking some font attributes, Arial, bold, 14, whatever, they actually allow you to pick heading levels. So for all of these, this is a heading 1, the military revolution, and the other 3 are all heading 2. And by using those heading levels consistently throughout the document, there's a number of things you can do. First of all, you can automatically generate a table of contents from the heading levels. There's no other way, short of consistent use of levels, that you can automatically generate a table of contents. The other thing, and you can see here in the navigator in OpenOffice, is that you can navigate the structure and jump directly to particular headings. And you can decide how many levels of heading you want to see and immediately leap to the one that's relevant. And if you insert an extra paragraph at the end, and I cunningly call this extra paragraph, in most word processors, in the outline mode in Word and in the navigator, it's very easy to take the extra paragraph and drag it somewhere else. And when you drag the heading, the text that lives under it, its child text, goes with it. And if you have multiple levels of heading, if you have a heading 2 with a couple of heading 3s and some paragraphs under them, and you grab the heading 2 and move it, all the children go with it. And this is important in terms of structured writing, but as the internet has developed, it's become much more important because of the way the internet manages text. Text on web pages, text in encoded documents is wrapped in tags, and these tags represent the attributes. So in this case, this is a piece of text transcribed from a witness statement from the War of Independence by a second-year undergraduate and partially encoded in TEI encoding, which looks very similar to HTML because it is. HTML, XML, TEI, it's all the same methodology. So in this case, all the place names are marked up as place names. And in a later pass, all the organizational names and personal names will be marked up. And when that's done, and all the organizational titles, for example, you can then go through and pull out everyone from Mallow. And all the different variants of Mallow can be standardized in the tagging. So it makes it possible to find all the people who entered their place name as Mallow, or Mala, or Mo-Ala, or whatever. So this tagging allows us to manipulate text and control the text and decide how it will work. And that's become even more important in the age of presenting stuff on the web. On the left, there's a web page. It's the plain text of the web page. And as you can see in the different divisions, participation is a H3. And requirements are a H3. They're all a consistent level of heading. Benefits up there is a H3. And if you look at the text here, the road to enlightenment, so what is this all about? Participation. These are all H3s. The beauty of CSS design is a H2, I guess, so is CSS Zen Garden is probably a H1 or a H2. Consistent application of these in the tagging means, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. I'll show you what it means. These two screen grabs are from the Zen Garden website, the CSS Zen Garden website. If you look at the text, the road to enlightenment, littering a dark and dreary road lay the past relics of browser-specific tags, etc., etc., incompatible domains, object module, broken CSS. The text in both is exactly the same. Because we've been very rigid and organized in making sure that all our headings are heading 3s in this case, and our body text is all body text, and our top level heading 1 is clearly tagged as heading 1, and the beauty of CSS design underneath it is clearly tagged as heading 2, then it means that by changing the style sheet, you can completely change the appearance of the text. Now, this website just shows you how you change the appearance of the text. But obviously by changing the style sheet, you can have different style sheets for the text on a laptop, a printed version of the text where you won't want any of the fussiness about it, a different style sheet for a mobile version of the text, which is more compact, maybe even a different style sheet to make the text appear clear on Google Glasses. And where you have to prepare text, and let's face it, in the humanities a great deal of what we do is about text, even though it's becoming increasingly visual. If you want to write text that's going to be reusable across multiple different formats, you must control the structure. This is one of the restrictions that the digital imposes on the normal flow of writing. You can't just grab a sheet of paper and your favorite marker and scribble. At some point in time, you have to organize your thinking for it to work with maximum efficiency across multiple digital platforms. That's why mind mapping, making the text recognizable, identifying all the major headings, identifying most of them, working out, what's the scale from very good at the top to very bad at the bottom in terms of mind mapping text and taking articles apart, allows you to develop essay plans and allows you to develop structured writing, which can be refactored and reused without having to go back and re-edit the text from start to finish again, just because you've not tagged it up properly. So this is why I encourage people to mind map articles. And we'll go back there and look at this, this process here, taking an article and taking it apart and breaking it out into a mind map using a tool like FreeMind or XMind, initially on paper, but as a digital class you really need to be using digital tools for this. And that's what I want people to start doing with readings going forward.